Oh yeah, I finished it! I'm really proud of myself for finishing this book because, again, reading is not a popular pastime with me. It took me 2 months to read parts 1 and 2 of the book. I flew through part 3 in this past week because its film adaptation has been in theaters for about a week now, so it's time for me to talk some spoilers about it. So spoiler warning, this is going to be a very special spoiler talk from me because this is where I'm going to be comparing the film to its original source material. I'm going to be going through the story and comparing the two versions along the way. I'm not going to touch on every single minute detail. I am going to try to do as much as I can though. So yeah, that is a spoiler alert for the movie and the book. So if you don't care about spoilers for either of those, or you've seen the movie and or read the book, then you are good to stick around. Alright, let's dive in. I'm really excited for this. I'm gonna put this down now. So alright, first things first, is the book better than the movie or is the movie better than the book? The book is way better. The book has so much going on in it, so many things happen in this story, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which again, the length of the book totally justifies that. It's 30 chapters, 10 chapters per part, and these chapters are as long as they need to be. I feel even stronger now that 2 films would have been justified for this story. I mean, good examples of this are It, and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and probably Dune as well. I say probably for Dune because Dune Part 2 has not been released in theaters yet. And yes, I know that those books are way longer than The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but that book is still long enough to justify 2 films in my mind's eye. Because watching The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes film, it feels so crammed. It really does fly through the story of the book. I know I said in my review that the movie starts off feeling fast and then the pacing gets slower the more it goes on. After finishing the book, I gotta say, yeah, the whole movie does feel fast compared to the original source material, including part 3. And that ultimately is this movie's biggest flaw. I feel like studios really do need to learn the justified reason for taking a book and splitting it into 2 or more films. Because while it may not have been the best choice for Mockingjay, it definitely would have been the better choice for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Alright, now that we're done with that TED Talk, let's finally dive into the story. So the movie starts off in the dark days, the days of the war, which this was actually not in the book. The book starts off right away when Koryo's 18. But this little 5-minute prologue set in the dark days when Koryo's 5 years old, yeah, I did the math, and he's with his cousin Tigress, and they get the news from the Grandmam that Koryo's father, Crassus Snow, is dead. He was killed by rebels. I guess the scene is necessary enough. It does set the tone for how dark this movie's gonna be, I'll give it that. One thing I gotta give huge props to this movie for, though, is dividing it into 3 parts like the book did. Because you see the text, part 1, the mentor, come on the screen. I was like, huh. Which, yeah, it made it really easy for me to keep up with it, having read parts 1 and 2 of the book before I saw the movie for the first time. You can imagine how I felt seeing that. It just really worked out for me. That was cool. Part 1, the mentor. Part 2, the prize. Part 3, the peacekeeper. Just like in the book. So starting us off, alright, Koryo, he's in the academy mingling with the students, and we meet Sejanus. Alright, Sejanus Plinth is from District 2 originally, but his father, Strabo Plinth, runs the military for the capital, so really that family bought their way in there, so now they're capital citizens, but Sejanus he is looked down on because he's from the districts. And even Koryo at first is like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with him. The 2 of them do end up bonding throughout the story, but at first, in the movie and the book, Koryo is hesitant to be around him. And the Plinth Prize. So these 24 academy students, including Koryo and Sejanus, they're assigned to be mentors for the tributes of the Hunger Games, and one of them is going to win the Plinth Prize, which you see as like a scholarship to the university. It's a big money prize from the Plinth family. In the book, even the concept of the Plinth Prize is not even introduced until sometime into the games. Yeah, Sejanus, this is in the book, Sejanus is brought on the air talking to Lucky Flickerman. I think his father was with him, and Sejanus announces the Plinth Prize in a really sad and depressed manner, I might add. Is it a huge difference? No, it's one I can roll with. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not even really worth mentioning, but the details, that's what this video is all about. Moving on, we get to the reaping. And this scene is right out of the book. It's awesome. Lucy Gray gets picked, which we actually learned later was fixed by the mayor's daughter, Mayfair, because both of the girls were pursuing the same guy, Billy Tope. So Mayfair had her father read off Lucy Gray's name. Bitch. I was pretty happy that she gets hers later on. I'll get there eventually. But yeah, Lucy Gray's walking up. She takes the snake and she sticks it down Mayfair's dress. It's like, yep, that's right out of the book. That was awesome. And she gets to the stage and all right, we have the first song she sings. In the movie, the song is actually started by a couple of people in the audience. I don't think that happened in the book. I say I don't think because it was 2 months ago I read this part. Again, I don't remember every minute detail. But no, it's just her singing the whole song on the stage. I think I like that better, actually. It was cool, though, in the movie where she was like, "You can kiss my ass!" I was like, love it. Now, one of the biggest differences this movie made from the book that I didn't like was a character who had a much bigger part in the book than she did in this movie, and that is Clemencia Dovecote. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Ashley Liao did a great job in the movie, given what little she had to work with, but alright, let's go over it. The scene where Dr. Volumnia Gall is like, okay, write me a proposal, Corio, and Clemencia stands up, she's like, wait a minute, I want in on this. Immediately, I was like, that's not how it was in the book. In the book, the proposal is actually assigned to Corio, Clemencia, and Festus. I think it was Festus, which makes a lot more sense, because in the book, Clemencia is actually quite sweet. She's not really that snobby like she is in the movie. But then after Arachne's murder, which I'll get to in a minute, Clemmy's too shaken up and shocked to write anything, so Corio writes the proposal himself. So then when they're with the big snake vat, and Clemencia tries taking the credit for it, she seems a lot more innocent. You actually feel bad for her when she gets attacked by the snakes in the book. Now, in the movie, that's the last we see of poor Clemencia. She gets attacked, and then the doctors just drag her off. She might as well have died right then and there. In the book, her part goes on. She gets really sick. She comes down with this really bad disease-like thing. She gets like snake scales on her collarbone or something, like Grayscale from Game of Thrones or some shit. And she builds up a resentment for Corio because of this. That whole subplot, I really liked it because I felt really bad for poor Clemmy. There is more to this story to touch on, but I'll get to it later on in the story. Getting back to the murder of Arachne Crane, yeah, that was also right out of the book. Arachne Crane's being a total asshole, taunting her tribute with the food at the zoo. And so when her tribute just loses it and smashes the bottle and stabs her in the throat with it, yeah, she had it coming. But I remember reading that in the book and being like, holy shit, one of the mentors just died. And then subsequently, one of the tributes as well, because the tribute gets shot up by peacekeepers. Yeah, right out of the book, that was great. Because that's really the first time you get the sense that like, oh, the story of these 10th Hunger Games is gonna be different than the ones we know later on, the 74th, etc. And in the book, not too long after that, there's a point where the tributes are marched on parade in shackles with Arachne's dead tribute hanging from like a crane or something on display for everyone to see. It's meant to show the power of the Capitol. I guess that wasn't necessary for the movie, but I did notice it was missing. I thought it was cool later on when they were touring the Capitol Arena. They're going over strategies, and in the book, I know I'm saying that a lot, but that's what this video is all about. In the book, the conversation that Corio and Lucy Gray have here is really the first time you get the sense that the two of them are starting to form a romantic attraction to each other. They're holding hands, they're flirting, and then the world exploded. That's the line that ends the chapter in the book. All these bombs go off, it's a rebel bombing, which kills off a few more tributes and mentors. By the time the games start, like there's a good chunk of them dead already, which that does give Lucy Gray a better chance of winning for sure. Although I will say in the book, Corio and Lucy Gray, they do kiss goodbye before the games. Yeah, they changed that for the movie. They almost kiss in the film, but they don't quite. I guess for some reason Francis Lawrence thought it would be better for them to save their first kiss until after the games. I don't know. So alright, now we are in the Hunger Games. And I love this point of view we see it from because we've never seen it like this. All these Academy students watching it from the Capitol, and Lucky Flickerman is there with his commentary, which yeah, in the book it's different. In the book, Lucky Flickerman isn't there with the students, he's on the TV. He does have a camera guy though, Lepidus Malmsey, running around interviewing the students, usually after their tribute dies. Again, not a super important change, I could live with that. Plus it does give Jason Schwartzman time to shine because he was pretty funny in this movie. Like the scene where he was like, all colors lead to gray. And then he's like, did that work? Yeah, that was good. That was funny. I was looking forward to seeing his parrot Jubilee though. Because, yeah, he had a parrot named Jubilee in the book. Not in the movie. Damn. Now, the events of the Hunger Games themselves, they are way different in the book. Well, most of them are. You do get Marcus hanging there and Sejanus going apeshit and leaving. That was in the book. You get Lamina up on the beam. Yeah, I called her Lamina. I'll be honest, as I was reading the book, I was reading it along with Santino Fontana's audiobook. Otherwise, I never would have gotten it done. But yeah, in the audiobook, she was called Lamina. So when they called her Lamina in the movie, I was like, that's different. I'm gonna call her Lamina. It sounds better. Also from the book, the fact that Reaper takes down the big Capitol flag and covers the dead bodies with it. Yeah, that's from the book. Other than that though, the events of the games, completely different. I mean, for starters, when it first starts off, in the movie the games start where everyone's trying to kill each other, it's a bloodbath like the games we've seen before. But in the book, it's not like that. All these tributes are so nervous that they just scatter. They all just take off and hide, all of them. No one fights in the beginning. Which, as I was reading that, I found that really interesting. Because again, it was something that made these games different than what I've seen and read before. So the fact that the movie made it similar, just, I don't know, it was less interesting to me. Then we get to the scene where Sejanus sneaks into the arena to pay tribute to Marcus. I remember in the book, Corio is at home with Tigris and the Grandmam and Sejanus' mother when they see on their TV screen that Sejanus is in there. Because his mother recognizes him. She's like, that's my boy. And then they get a call from Dr. Gall saying, y'all need to get your asses over here so you can get him out of there. And so they all go over there and yeah, Corio is selected to go in and rescue Sejanus. In the movie it's different. Sejanus is still in the academy when Gall approaches him and they see on the screen that Sejanus is in there. Not as interesting. nothing, in my opinion. In fact, that felt crammed. And so when Koryo goes in there to rescue Sejanus, he does end up killing one of the tributes. That was from the book. He kills Bobbin. In pretty much the same way from the book, he just bludgeons him to death. Although that is not the most brutal death in the book. That is not in the movie. Jessup's death is, though. Yeah, in the book, just like in the movie, Jessup gets rabies from that bite on his neck. And yeah, they briefly touch on it in the movie, that back in the war, people who had rabies, they were afraid of water. So they send in the drone, they drench Jessup, and he falls and he dies. Alright, I can let that slide. I thought that was pretty well done. Or at least well done enough for the movie. I remember reading that there would be crowds outside the arena that were like divided into their fandoms for each tribute, making the Hunger Games more of an event. That wasn't in the movie. But then the feed cuts off and it's Dr. Gall. She's like, Felix Ravenstill has succumbed to his wounds and he's died. He's the son of the president. To me, that name, Felix Ravenstill, was more memorable because, yeah, President Ravenstill in the book. I mean, there's no scene with the president in the book, but Felix Ravenstill, yeah, you know the name. But in the book, the person who she announced died was Gaius Breen, which even reading it, I was like, who is that again? Yeah, I didn't even remember. So I thought that in the movie was actually done better. But then Gall is like, a rainbow of destruction is coming for the games, which Koryo remembers. That's how she described those neon snakes in the lab with Clemencia, which I don't think that line was ever in the book, the whole rainbow of destruction thing. No. I'm fine with it though, although those snakes were not nearly as neon as they were made out to be in the book. In the book, they were described as like bright pink and bright yellow. In the movie, they're more of a dark pink and dark yellow. They look cool, but I thought they could have looked a lot cooler. But Koryo does do his cheating move here because of the whole scent thing, like the snakes are familiar with scents they won't attack. They just attack unfamiliar smells. So his handkerchief with Lucy Gray's tears, he slips it into the snake vat. He does it in a different location in the book. He just does it in a hallway with two assistants there, but he does it after they leave so no one's looking. In the movie, he does it outside as it's like about to take off into the arena. It's a difference I'm okay with. It's not really even worth mentioning, but I guess I just thought I would. The biggest change this movie makes to the Hunger Games is how it ends. I mean, yeah, Lucy Gray sings the song around all the snakes. That's in the book, but the actual ending events completely different. The snakes aren't even the last thing to happen in the games in the book. Long story short, the last tribute left in the arena with Lucy Gray is Reaper, played in the movie by Demetria Bold, who did a really good job. Reaper's the one who was covering all the bodies with the flag. Lucy Gray had to distract him by taking the flag and running off. It was this whole thing. But really what touched me about it the most was the fact that Reaper was Clemencia Dovecoat's tribute. So the fact that Reaper and Lucy Gray were the two last tributes in the games, that's how Clemencia and Koryo eventually made amends with each other. You remember she was pissed off at him because of the lab incident, and now the fact that their two tributes are the last in the games, they're like, alright, we're good. That ended up being like one of my favorite subplots in the entire book, because I just really felt for Clemencia, and that really worked for me and I loved it. The movie just does away with all of that. No, in the movie the snakes just end up killing Reaper right there on the spot when they're released, and the last tribute remaining with Lucy Gray is Coral, played by Mackenzie Lansing, who also did a really good job. And I kinda get it, you know, she was a leader of the pack in the movie and she was more of a character than most of the other tributes were, including Reaper. So alright, it was a change they made for the movie, but I just thought the book's way of doing it was way better with Reaper and Clemencia. I like that more. Cause then in the book, this is cool. After all the shit goes down and Lucy Gray is the last one standing, everyone in the academy is like, what do we do now? Did she win? Half an hour goes by before they finally announce, yeah, she won the games. I like that. I actually thought it was kind of funny. In the movie, okay, they play it up for more dramatic effect, which the scene was actually really cool. It's the song she sings with the snakes, which, yeah, the song is right out of the book, the old There Before. But the music in this song in particular is really interesting because, and this is the musician in me coming out, she's singing the song in a major key, but the score, the accompaniment, is in a minor key, and there's some real dissonance going on there. When I first saw the movie, I was like, ooh, alright, that's different. But upon listening to the soundtrack more and more, I got used to it, and I actually think it's really cool. And so yes, Lucy Gray Baird wins the 10th annual Hunger Games. Woo! Victory! Except not really, cause guess what, Koryo? You're busted! He got caught cheating. The evidence of the compact with the rat poison and the handkerchief, yeah, they were found. And Coriolanus Snow is sent off to be a peacekeeper. Alright, now we're getting into part 3, the peacekeeper. This is now the part of the book that I just spent the past week reading, so I remember a lot more of it. In the movie, Dean Highbottom, played really well by Peter Dinklage, I might add. Never mentioned that yet. Yeah, he was great. But he's like, alright, yeah, I'm just gonna sentence you to 20 years as a peacekeeper. In the book, the dean offers this to Koryo as a lifeline instead of just plain old public disgrace and humiliation. The dean's pretty much like, yeah, alright, we can take away everything from you just right now, and the Snow name will mean nothing. Or You can spend the next 20 years as a peacekeeper out in the districts. Koryo agrees to do that. And so yeah, now we get to Koryo's time out in District 12, and I still agree that this does feel like half the story, even in the book. And it's because, like, parts 1 and 2 are in the capital and the Hunger Games. Parts 1 and 2 take place in the same location for the most part. Part 3 takes place all in District 12 for the most part, so they just feel separate, or at least that's my experience with it. And Koryo talks with Sejanus on the train, who's like, your life has just begun. In the book, that talk happens a little later on, because this is a lot more fleshed out in the book. Koryo's time as a peacekeeper and his fellow soldiers, we got Smiley and Bug and Beanpole, only in the book. They're not really in the movie. Again though, a change I can live with. Here's something I thought the movie actually did better. When they go down into the Hob for the first time, and Koryo is shocked to see Lucy Gray again, in the book he was actually told by Smiley, one of the other peacekeepers, that hey, we're going to the Hob, there's gonna be a band there. And so yeah, Koryo is told about the band beforehand, so he's like, oh, Lucy Gray, I'm gonna see her again. I like this in the movie more because of his shock just right there. Him learning right then and there that he's gonna see his love again. Yeah, I thought the movie did that better, so props. So in the book, after Arlo Chance's hanging, we get to a point where mockingjays are explained to Koryo, and I realized that mockingjays, the reason they're such a symbol of rebellion is never explained in the movies, which you would think that's actually pretty important. Mockingjays are a symbol of rebellion in Panem because they are the result of jabberjays, which are capital made, mating with mockingbirds out in the wild when the jabberjays were supposed to be recalled. So the mockingjays were never supposed to happen. Therefore, their creation was something that was out of the capital's control. And that's why they're a symbol of rebellion. I always thought that was really cool. That really should have been explained in the first movie. Or for nothing else in this movie, but oh well. There is a point in the book where Koryo, out in 12, gets a letter from Pluribus Bell, who was an old neighbor of his in the capital. Character's not in the movie at all. This letter he gets, though, it hints at the origin of the Hunger Games, you know, from the Dean and Koryo's father. The letter says that the two of them had a falling out over some drunk joke. It doesn't really say what the joke is. You learn that later on in the epilogue. But it's hinted at here, in the book anyway. Not in the movie. I thought the book did a good job at that, actually. I thought the book did that better. Because as it stands, in the movie, when you realize that, I'll get to it later, but it seemed really sudden, like, oh, here's an explanation of the Hunger Games, and I left the movie going, alright, well, that was sudden. In the book, the letter foreshadowing to it, yeah, that was more organic. Again, just another thing the book did better. The Covey performing at the Hob, of course, there are more songs that they perform here in the book, including a couple that don't make it into the movie. They made it onto the soundtrack, though, which is interesting. And so Koryo finally meets back up with his love, Lucy Gray, who's singing the Hanging Tree. So yeah, turns out in the book as well, Lucy Gray Baird is the one who wrote the Hanging Tree song. I guess it still can be seen as fan service, but the song actually does have like deeper meaning in this story, in both the book and the movie. I thought that was really well done. It's not really just fan service. There is a point to it. Great, that's awesome. Way to go, Suzanne Collins, on that. But from there, again, yeah, this movie does leave out a lot from the book. There's the officer's training program test. There's the part where Koryo and everyone, they had to wrangle up the mockingjays and jabberjays. Yeah, this last act is in fact pretty rushed. Gotta admit it. There is the part where we hear that song, Lucy Gray's Ballad, the song based off the old Wordsworth poem, which is actually a real poem, like in real life. That's been around since like the 1700s. I looked into it. It's pretty cool. And it's like this ghost story about a girl who vanished. In retrospect, that again is really good foreshadowing of Lucy Gray Baird's fate. Although in the book it's Maud Ivory who sings it, I like Lucy Gray herself singing it better. It almost makes it seem prophetic. That's cool. Not too long after that though, we get the most forced, needless fan service in the entire story, both the book and the movie. I was surprised to learn that this was actually in the book as well. And yes, the part where they're talking about the Katniss plant. When I first saw that in the movie, I was like, really? Come on, that you did not have to do that. In the book, I was like, wait, it's actually in the book as well? Come on, Collins, that was so needless. Yeah, I get it. Call back to Katniss Everdeen. Yeah, I get it. No, that doesn't work. So what, now when President Snow sees Katniss Everdeen in the later stories, he's reminded of Lucy Gray? Nah, come on. That didn't need to happen. Although the book does go on with the needless fan service because then Lucy Gray sings Deep in the Meadow, which was left out of the movie, so I'll give the movie props for that. But then the later songs are mixed up a little bit. We get to the next performance at the Hob, where in the movie she sings Pure as the Driven Snow. In the book, this is a different song. It's a song that's not in the movie. It's the whole I'll sell you for a song bit. In the book, the Pure as the Driven Snow song is actually sung by Lucy Gray later on at the Commander Hoff's birthday party. It's a thing, which Commander Hoff played by Bern Gorman in this movie. Not bad. But then we get the whole Mayfair Billy Tope incident, which is really important. Which it's funny though, because at this point in the book, when this incident comes around, Sejanus is already dead. Not so in the movie. In the movie, Sejanus is there for it. Yeah, Mayfair shows up, talks some shit, and Koryo ends up shooting her with the gun in self-defense for Lucy Gray. And then Spruce shoots Billy Tope. But yeah, Koryo just killed the mayor's daughter. He'd get hung for that. And And that gun has bits of evidence all over it. You know, it's got Koryo's DNA. Not good. But then we get to Sejanus' death, which does go down in the movie the same way it does in the book. Koryo records Sejanus' rebel plan with the Jabberjay and sends it into the capital. So yeah, Koryo gets Sejanus killed. At this point, Koryo and Sejanus have grown to be friends, if not brothers. But Koryo remains loyal to the capital and Panem, so much that he's willing to betray his best friend at this point. Yeah, Koryo killed Sejanus. Man, that was a tough scene to watch in the movie. I mean, he's calling for his ma, which, yeah, his last words in the book as well as the movie. He's calling ma, ma, and he hangs, and the Jabberjays start to mock him, ma, ma. Oh my god, that's brutal, dude. And so Koryo and Lucy Gray Bear decide to just run away from it all because of the evidence of Koryo shooting the mayor's daughter. So yeah, he needs to get out of Dodge. So he and Lucy Gray are just gonna take off. But they stop at that cabin by the lake where he finds those guns, the evidence against him. They were hidden there in that cabin, I guess. And so Koryo's like, holy shit, I can destroy the evidence and get my life back. My life training as a peacekeeper, making it back to the capital eventually. Since I've been promoted, now I'm going to District 2. But then he turns to Lucy Gray. He's like, I can destroy this. There'll be no evidence. And Lucy Gray's like, except me. Because I know, I was there when you shot Mayfair. And so this is it. You would think, all right, Koryo and Lucy Gray, they're in love. Lucy Gray wouldn't betray Koryo, would she? Lucy Gray made a big deal out of trust earlier in the book and the movie. Trust is more important than love. And they swore to each other that they could trust each other, but evidently not. Because then Lucy Gray just takes off without Koryo. Because she realizes that Koryo doesn't trust her after all. She is still evidence against him. She could turn him in. Well, we can't have that happen, so she, realizing this, just takes off and vanishes into thin air, just poof. She's gone. I mean, Koryo does try to hunt her down with the rifle, and this is really cool. He fires, he thinks he sees her, and in the book, it describes he hears a faint cry after he fires. In the movie, kind of the same thing. You just kind of see her as a blur going by, and she lets out a yelp, and that's the last we ever see of her. Because he goes to check, but there's no one there, so yeah, now she's just gone. Which I love this. The fate of Lucy Gray Baird is ultimately unknown. She's like Schrodinger's songbird. But to me, it was just so interesting how quickly Koryo and Lucy Gray went from lovers to enemies. Because of that antitrust. That was really well done in the movie and the book. More so in the book. And so with Lucy Gray now out of the picture, Koryo destroys the evidence and goes back to his life. He goes back to District 12, he gets deployed, he's brought to the capital, not District 2. Because Dr. Gall is like, thank you, Koryo, for the recording of Sejanus. You've proven your loyalty to the capital and Panem. And now you're gonna study here at the university with the Plinth Prize under me. And so you're like, oh shit. Because that's it right there. Like, if there were any doubts about Koryo's loyalties before, they're gone now. I thought that scene was actually really well done in the movie. Koryo's spiel about what the Hunger Games are really for. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. And then we get to the epilogue, where Koryo visits the dean, and here's where we learn the origin of the Hunger Games. We learned that Casca Highbottom and Crassus Snow, Coriolanus' father, they were best friends at the academy studying under Dr. Gall, but Casca Highbottom was failing his class. They were assigned to come up with a punishment so extreme that the rebels would never forget how badly they wronged them. So one drunken night, Casca came up with the idea of the Hunger Games as like a sick joke. But Crassus Snow, being an asshole, stole that idea, put his and Casca's name on it, and presented it to Dr. Gall, and the rest is history. Since then, Casca and Crassus Snow, they had their falling out, and Casca Highbottom was credited as the inventor of the Hunger Games. Yeah, again, in the movie, that seemed like a really sudden revelation. In the book, that was foreshadowed with a letter. So yeah, again, that was more organic. But then it turns out that Koryo slipped some rat poison into the dean's morphling. So yeah, Koryo killed the dean right there. I love that. The music cue when he realizes he's dying, he's like, and he just sinks and dies. I was like, holy shit. And yeah, the music, you notice, is the music that also ended the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. I love this musical track, dude. James Newton Howard does such a good job here at just building up that tension and drama. Because in the end, the dean, as he drew his final breath, he realized what all of Panem would one day know. Snow lands on top. That was such an awesome ending to the book. Yeah, because then it says, the end. There's no quote that they bring back from one of the other stories. I didn't like that in the movie. Like, after it cuts to black, you hear that same quote that was in both the trailers. That quote from Mockingjay Part 1 about the things we love most that destroy us. I was like, that did not have to be in the movie. We get it. We get the lesson here. We didn't need some needless fan service to really drive the point home. The point has been driven home. Oh well. But yeah, in the end, that is the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Whew. I've been standing here jabbering to my camera for almost 90 minutes.
That's pretty fucking impressive, right?
So, in conclusion, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a good movie. But yeah, the book, way better. because there's enough room in there to draw everything out for as long as it needed to be drawn out, I still think 2 movies would have been justified, because ultimately the movie does suffer from very rushed pacing in comparison, and even not in comparison. I do still plan on watching the movie many more times, because I have a really good time with it regardless, because of the acting and the set design and the music and all of that. I mean, it's the Hunger Games, you know? I love that world, I will continue to love that world, whether it be literary or cinematic. So here'll be my question for you. What is a movie that really deviates a lot from its original source material, but is still just really good regardless? I think that's a really good question, so whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!